All right. Hi, my name is Scott Campbell. I'm the Vice President of Research Programs for the American Diabetes Association. I've had the opportunity in the past couple of days to visit the Phoenix area and had an opportunity to give a talk last night at an event organized by the local office, the Phoenix office. And what I wanted to do was just give a little bit of an update on the research program at the ADA. I hope everybody knows that one of the main emphasis of the American Diabetes Association is funding research. The research that we fund is in all areas of research: type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, complications, gestational diabetes. Last night I had an opportunity to talk specifically about the money that was coming back into Phoenix and the state of Arizona, as well as hot topics in type 1 and type 2 diabetes. The Research Foundation, which is a separate entity within the confines of the American Diabetes Association, raises money specifically to fund the research program. So I have an opportunity to go out and talk to a lot of our donors and tell them the great things that we're doing. In Phoenix and in the state of Arizona as a whole, there's currently about $2 million coming back in to fund research in the state. And there are some excellent researchers here spread out in Phoenix, down in Tucson. We have a couple of things in Scottsdale as well. So there's a lot of stuff here. One of the things I've been asked to do is just simply give an update on the hot topics in type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes. So in my talk last night, I had an opportunity to review these. Certainly in type 1 diabetes, one of the hottest things that's going on right now is prevention of type 1 diabetes. Not treatment, but actually prevention and efforts to do that. One of the things that is really, really hot right now is obviously beta cell regeneration. Hopefully everybody knows that the beta cell is the cell that's in the pancreas that produces insulin. And one of the things that happens with type 1 is your immune system decides that that's a foreign tissue or foreign cell, attacks and kills it. That's called an autoimmune process. Basically what we're trying to do is understand that process and prevent it from happening. There are some drugs on the market right now that are being tested. They aren't FDA approved yet, but they're being tested. Things like a monoclonal antibody called anti-CD3, which actually is in what's called phase 3 clinical trials right now, close to being considered for FDA approval. And there's another one called rituximab, which is called an anti-CD20 drug. That's interesting because it actually affects a different cell population than some of the others. They're called B cells. So those are two things that are happening right now as far as drug treatments that could potentially prevent or delay type 1. Beta cell regeneration is another hot area. We want to definitely look at replacing the beta cells that are lost. How can we do that? Via stem cells, external source, internal source. Can we actually figure out how beta cells turn on to replicate and replace themselves? Hot areas of research. Finally, probably one of the hottest areas right now is it's a process called immune tolerance, and that is basically, even though the cells that are there that damage and kill the beta cells are part of the immune system, how can you block those? And so the cells that actually do the killing are called T cells, but not all T cells are alike. There is a good portion of T cells called T regulatory cells, and if we can figure out how to increase those numbers to block the autoimmune process, then we may have a true answer. Obviously, technology has advanced. There are efforts to do closed-loop systems out there. That's basically taking a continuous glucose monitor, tying it to an insulin pump. There are some other technological advances that have happened as well. In type 2 diabetes research, I think at this point in time, prevention is the key. The ADA coined a term a few years ago called prediabetes. That's people who haven't yet been diagnosed with diabetes but are at an increased risk. And what we basically want to do is keep them from actually going on to develop type 2 diabetes. Well, one of the ways we can do that is by, for example, behavioral change. So there was a trial a few years ago called the Diabetes Prevention Program, and through that trial we know that intensive lifestyle modification can actually prevent people from going from prediabetes and actually developing type 2. Problem is that it was a relatively intensive regimen, and the amount of money that it took to do it was relatively expensive. So there are efforts now to take that from a clinical trial setting and put it into the real world. That's going to be important stuff. Probably the most important thing that I know of in type 2 diabetes in the recent years has been, believe it or not, fat cell biology. So who would have thought 5 years ago that the fat cell in your body, which we all know is just simply a place to store extra calories, actually is the most hormonally active tissue in the body. And It produces most of the hormones, and the factors that it produces actually are not very good for you. They can stimulate inflammation, they can actually change metabolism, they can change your eating behavior. So if we can understand that, maybe we can get in front of this. Certainly with type 2 diabetes, we need to get in front of the obesity epidemic. It's basically 2/3 of the U.S. population is overweight, half of them, so that's 1/3 of the U.S. population is obese. People who are overweight and obese actually have a higher risk of developing type 2, so we need to do something about that. So those are kind of the hot areas right now: fat cell biology, understanding feeding behavior and influence to the brain, and also as well as the metabolism in type 2. Type 1 efforts to prevent the autoimmune process, either by drug treatment, as I mentioned, anti-CD3 or anti-CD20, as well as efforts to understand or expand the T regulatory population to block the process, and ultimately to improve the technology to deal with type 1 diabetes. So the ADA certainly funds a lot of research, and we're out there to try to take care and really be true to our mission, that is to prevent and cure diabetes, and improve the lives of all people affected by diabetes. So thanks, and hope that was informative. And the Phoenix area, I appreciate being in this area, and the state of Arizona has a really lot of great funded investigators here, and I'm sure that we will continue to fund a lot of research here. Thanks.